وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Yes.
Alaikum salam.
Salam, salam, salam.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a section here that's in Arabic, and again, I'm not sure why it wasn't translated. Um, some of it is a bit interesting, but yeah, so I'm just going to read this Arabic here, E118. So it says, hang on 1 second. So it says, Yundabu tartiyatul ina. It is recommended to cover containers, meaning you have a bucket of water, you have a cup with a drink in it. You're going to put it, you're just going to leave it outside. You shouldn't do that. Right? The prophecies that I mentioned, so there's a particular day in the night, in the year, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down a waba, a plague, a disease, and you should be very careful of that. And the Prophet also, in general, recommended us to cover containers. So you have a container, you cover it. Now, is it a full covering, like as we do for worldly practical things, or is it a spiritual covering? It is a spiritual covering. So even if you, let's say, for example, you had a pot with some food in it in the kitchen, right? It's hot and you don't want to put it away in the fridge yet, and it's going to spend the night there, or it's going to be there till Fajr. So what do? You just put a spoon over it, right? Something like that, right? So it's just something over it, right? That you've covered over it. Just like when you lock the door and you say Bismillah, you've put a kind of spiritual insurance on it. Okay, so that's what you do. Something like that. So it doesn't have to be covered 100%, but for the spiritual protection of it, something over it, right? If that makes sense. Again, something, other things that are hot and you can't fully cover. If you fully covered it, it would, be practically inconvenient, whatever it is, something that goes over it. That's the general idea. So you leave things, you don't leave things, um, uncovered. And he says, فَلَوْ وَقَعَ فِي أَحَدِ الْإِنَاءِ نَجَسٌ تَوَضَّأَ من أحدهما باجتهاد وظهور علامة سواء قدر على طاهر بيقين أم لا. So here we have an interesting discussion. What if I had a bucket of water and some filth may have or might have or may very well have gone in it? What do I do?
Nothing, because doubt doesn't take the place of certainty.
Okay, what if it's like 99.99999999999%?
I'll let my peers jump on this one.
Still not certain. Good. Why? Because 99.999999999% I'm going to weigh that against the 100%. See, are you sure that it was pure before? Yes. Okay, so 99.9999% still does not outweigh the 100%. Okay? However, now I have another scenario. I have 2 buckets of water, 2 plates of food, 2 things, okay, that could get filthy. Okay? One of them gets filthy. Okay? Yaqinan, I know that it got filthy, but I don't know which one. So how does that work?
Uh, One can still eat both of them because one is not certain which one of them is got filthy.
Okay, that's an approach. That's a logical approach, yeah. So both of them, in principle, okay. But so how about that then? How about so could I do both then? Could I use both at the same time? Because if I'm using one, that means logically the other one is najas, right? Because if I know that one of them is, right, I know definitely one of them is. So that means if I'm using one, I guess that's true. Like I could just use one because the other one might not be, right? Might not be. So, but if I use both of them at the same time, or I eat from both of them, or I use both of them, how about that?
I would disagree. I would say you can use any of them.
Why?
I don't know if this is like a bad qiyas, but I know, for example, if a dog licks one part of my trousers and I don't know which part, then I consider the whole trousers like najis and I have to wash all of it.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a tricky scenario, right? This is a bit tricky. So we know al-yaqin la yazul bil-shak. That's one principle. Certainty shall not live by doubt. But here I have certainty, but I don't know where it is, right? So we have, let's say these are three scenarios now. Okay. So scenario number one, I got four scenarios actually. Let's try and remember them. Scenario number one, Najasa went somewhere on this item of clothing, but it literally could be anywhere. So I know as a fact there's Najasa somewhere on this item of clothing. I just don't know where at all. It could be anywhere, right? You have to wash the whole thing. I've missed one prayer in the past, but I don't know which one it is. One of the five. You have to do all five. So I know definitely there was one day in my life where I didn't pray a prayer. Which one? No idea whatsoever. You have to pray all five because you don't know which one you've missed. Okay, so that's one scenario, okay, where you don't know, so you have to do everything. Okay. Similarly, in the same in the same kind of in the same scenario is okay, but it's different now. Now something that's like that but slightly different is I have a sister in Uganda. I know. My dad told me. He said he was married to this lady in Uganda and he had a daughter. Okay, so was that before I was born or after I was born? Okay, before. Okay. So there's a woman in Uganda who's older than me. So when I go to Uganda, can I get married? Can I marry a woman who is older than me in Uganda? So obviously that excludes anybody who's younger than me, fine. But that means basically older than me and younger than my dad, right? And I guess younger enough. I don't, so when did my dad get married? I don't know. So there's a certain bracket of age, right? Where any woman in Uganda could be my sister, right? So what do we say? We say you can marry any woman in Uganda, right? Even of that age, let's say from the age of 40 to 60. Okay? Here's this bracket, this age bracket, right? Age bracket of 40 to 60, they are all possibly your sister because you don't know at all who she is. Okay? Right? That's fine. And you don't have to do ijtihad. You don't have to do anything because, however, um, what you couldn't do is, for example, let's say so Uganda is a huge place, right? So now I'm going to say, no, it's different. It's in this village. There's a village in Uganda. Okay, how many people in that village? 20. Ah, that's different. You can't marry anybody in that village, right? So when it's a basically an uncountable countable number, like that's a very large number, you don't have to do anything. It's just overlooked, right? You couldn't marry all the women in Uganda of that age bracket. That would be different, right? So let's say I don't know what population of Uganda is, whatever million, okay? So X a million of, and then of them, there's X whatever 100,000 women in between the age of 40 and 60. So you go through married, divorce, every single one of the bracket. You can't do that because now you've definitely married your sister. Can't do that. But you could marry any of them without checking, and that's fine. But if there's so few, it's like it's not Uganda. There's a village in Uganda called X, and in that, if one of the women in that of that age bracket in that village is your sister, and you go there and there's only five, you couldn't marry any of them, right? So that's a slightly different scenario. Another scenario, which is similar, is relieving yourself in the open. Okay, you're on a flat plane. There are no trees. There is no walls. There's nothing, just totally flat. Okay? You have to relieve yourself. You can't relieve yourself facing the Qibla. So the Qibla is one direction of, right, I mean, the whole compass, right? So do we say the default is that you're not facing the Qibla because it's less likely? We say no, you have to do ijtihad. You don't say it's haram to face any direction, nor is it halal to face any direction. But rather we say you have to do ijtihad. You have to work it out. Before you relieve yourself, you'll face any direction. That could be the Qibla. So you need to, before you relieve yourself, you say, where's the Qibla, by the way? Because it is not the default that you're not doing that. Okay? So these are subtle differences. Each one has I mean, you could probably go on for 50,000 examples, but they have different scenarios, like slightly different cases with them, right? Different kind of scenarios with it. So here again, it might make sense to say it's a bit like, this is a bit like marrying. So you could say neither, right? From the point of view that it's a bit like marrying a woman and it's limited numbers, right? They're similar. And it's similar in other ways. The school, right? And when we said the school, we went one of the opinions, the position that's considered the strongest is the following. I have 2 buckets of water. One of them definitely was touched by blood. I can't see any blood. I can't taste any blood. Nothing's there. Right? 2 plates. One of them definitely has this filth in it. I know that, but I don't know which one. So what do we say? So it says, فَلَوْ وَقَعَ في أحد الإناءين نجس توضأ من أيهما باجتهاد وظهور علامة. So he says, if there's 2 containers, both are pure and purifying, you could make wudu from either. Two things of water, both are pure, you can eat from either. Right? توضأ من أحدهما باجتهاد وظهور علامة. Then you can use either of the 2 through ijtihad. So you have to do ijtihad first. You can't just choose. Right? Oh, another scenario is like this. It's a bit like washing. Okay, so washing the clothes, the urine could be anywhere, literally anywhere in those clothes. So I don't know where it is. You have to wash the whole thing. But contrary to, I'm praying in a room, the urine could be anywhere on the floor. You can pray anywhere on the floor, as long as you don't pray everywhere on the floor. Does that make sense? So here's
Yes,
right. Here's this room. There's like 50 places you could stand and pray in, and 50 places where you could fit and do sujood, right? So you could, as long as you do 49, you're fine. But the 50th one, you've definitely prayed on najasa. You know there's najasa somewhere there. I don't know where. Somewhere in that carpet, right? You can pray here, here, here. So that's different. See the difference between I'm using these clothes versus because it's on me, right? These clothes are on me while I'm praying, and somewhere on these clothes there's definitely najasa, right? So therefore I have to wash. I have to wash someplace, right? It's different to when I'm praying because I'm not definitely on the najasa. Right? It's not the same scenario. So anyway, so here it says, what do? You guess, you make a guesstimation, okay? And he says you're basically gonna go and use one of them, even if you're not sure. That's the scenario. So here's this key concept that's very important to understand. And again, for many of you, this is way beyond your level and not the goal of this class. But you come along and say, Habibi, I don't care about Shafi fiqh. Say, that's fine. I want Quran and Sunnah. Say, that's fine. Right? I'm not interested in following Imam Shafi or Imam Ghazali or I'm not interested in that. I just want to follow Quran and Sunnah. I'm like, that's fine. I say, so what does the madhab do for you? It trains you. Right? Think of these scenarios, come up with a better answer. So it's a training zone. Okay, look at it from this point of view, look at that from that point of view. Look at this point of view, just take you through these examples, right? Just like your undergrad, right? What's the whole point of the undergrad? Train you with some things. Okay, now you're going to go and do your master's. Come up with your own answer. I don't know, right? So, but the problem is, here's the huge problem. I just say Quran and Sunnah, okay, but nobody's shown you the problems of dealing with Quran and Sunnah, right? That's what we call it mas'ala, question. problem, issue. You've never been trained with issues. So that's what we do in fiqh. You could look at it from this point of view and look at it from that point of view. So how's that going to work? So later on, for example, in Minhaj al-Talibin, not here, we mentioned two positions. You say A and B, like, oh, which one's right? And that game of trying to weigh up which one's right trains you. Hanafi is the same thing, right? So you're a Hanafi alim. What does a Hanafi alim do? You finish, you do the hidayah in Hanafi fiqh, and you mention this position, that position, this position. It's a debate. You're training your mind, you're training your fiqh ability, right? You can look at it from this point of view, look at it from this point of view, right? And when you come out, you realize, whoa, that's actually super hard. And I actually couldn't work it out. So there's actually, when you understand fiqh properly, I mean, at least you're starting to understand properly, you realize it's much more complex than you thought. And then you realize having an answer forced upon you is actually much more useful than you'd imagine, right? Just like a customer, right? With the customer, you don't want the customer to think too much, right? Like you want to, when you're trying to get the customer to buy, it's actually a bit complex if you keep asking the customer, okay, would you like it like this or like this? Or like this or like this? Or like this or like this? Right? Would you like your fries hot or cold? It's like, huh? I mean, hot. Okay. Moderate or above moderate? Like, okay, above moderate. Okay, slightly above moderate. It's like it's going to get boring, right? It's going to get annoying, right? So having a madhab and doing taqleed, like having somebody else tell you what to do, is actually quite useful because in principle, you could work everything out by yourself. In principle, right? You could go and work out every single thing by yourself. Look at all the variables and all the discussion in the fiqh, but it's awfully time consuming. And sometimes, often, you realize, hang on a minute, good point. Do I go A or B? Right? Sheikh Mahmoud, for example, in the Tirmidhi class, right? Remember we brought up this one of the many different stances on in how we look at fiqh, right? Do we focus on A or do we focus on B? You're like, yeah, good point. And then if you took approach A, how do you actually do that, right? And if you do B, how do you actually do that, right? Um, uh, I don't know if Sham's here. Sham, do you ever teach? You don't teach politics, do you?
But that's all I teach.
You teach politics itself.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
I'm,
Okay,
yeah,
so imagine, for example, you're doing a debate like Republican or Democrat, right? And you're trying to just help the students kind of understand some of the main ways of looking at A and B, right?
sure.
Right? So from there to the actual policy it's quite difficult, right? The actual policy in we're going to bring this policy on the 1st of June about how many Ugandans we're going to let in the country with what kind of conditions, right? That's quite difficult, right?
I mean, once you explain the the how that part is made, sure. I mean, the policy is the making of the law. The politics is the thoughts behind the law, in essence.
Yeah, but is it super easy? Like, is it super obvious why I should be a communist or why I should be a hardcore capitalist or why,
No,
are the stages between? Is it super easy for a student to adopt a certain political position A and then
no,
B to fast forward that to a court case right now and be like, based on policy, we did the politics and we did the policy and then we applied it and this is objectively the answer based on your political stance. That's not easy, is it?
it's not
So
easy. It
so
takes
the
time.
teenager is like, to heck with those fascists, bro. And then it's like, okay, I appreciate where you're coming from, but it's like, it's actually quite complex. Same thing, like, to heck with those weird madhab people, bro. Like, let's just follow Quran and Sunnah. I said, fine, Habibi, let's come sit down. I understand where you're coming from. Let's come and sit down, but let's consider A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then A, B, and then A, and then A, B, and A, lots and lots of complex things. And you realize, oh my God, this is super hard, actually. And this is just day one, right? And there's day two, day three, it goes on and on and on as a concept, and then there's a principle, and then like actually applying it, right? So you say, fine, Quran and Sunnah. What do you do here? According to Quran and Sunnah, this. And so what you will see, what they will do half the time is just do really lame things. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like that's not really they're actually not showing the complexity of the discussion. So give them those five scenarios. What's your answer? They're like, well, it's obvious. Okay, show me. Okay, what about this? Oh, I didn't know about that. Okay, what about this? I didn't know about that. Right? So it's very easy to object to something. It's very easy to critically object. It's very difficult to critically object to something. Like, oh, these guys are strict. Oh, these guys don't follow Quran. So, okay, find something else. Show me your system. Because these are the problems that we deal with in usul al-fiqh, in terms of the high level, right? And then ijtihad on low level. And then when you get to the specifics of the specifics, and then the specific, it's actually super hard. Like, it just goes on forever, right? When you're trying to solve and then again, the court case itself, you've given the judge the final answer in the Hanafi's court, and now he has to apply it. Even that's difficult, of course. Here's the actual fatwa question, right? This scenario, I have the general idea, and the rules are all there. That's also hard, right? So all of those, every single process is difficult, right? And so it's one thing to object. The other thing is like, hey, I need to be trained, right? So this is what we do is like, look at this scenario, play with the principle, al-yaqeen la yazulu bishak, certainty shall not lifted by doubt, and play with different variables of it, right? Different variables of it. So I'll give you another example, the whole issue about, meat, right? So meat, the issue of like meat, is in reality a simple conflict between two principles, right? Do I go? So there's a principle in fiqh which is al-aada muhakkama. Norm shall be the arbiter, right? We go by what's normal. And al-yaqeen la yazulu bishak. And certainty shall not lifted by doubt. So with meat, for example, you say the default is meat. All meat is haram until I know that it's pure. But at the same time, al-aada muhakkama. At the same time, convention or norm shall be the arbiter. So given I'm in a Muslim country, the norm is this. So to what extent do I follow certainty? To what extent do I follow norm? And then I'm now going to apply that to other scenarios. Okay, so, what if the norm is, for example, these people live in a house with a dog? So do I assume then that because it's normal for them, for a dog to lick it, that it's filthy? How do these two principles, the conflicting principles, work? And then, so Imam Suyuti, for example, breaks out four different categories. Like, oh, have you thought about those things? Have you thought about scenarios that fall under these four different categories? Like, oh my God, that's a lot of things going on there. There's a lot of things going on there. So it's very easy to stand there saying, to hell with fascists. And then it's like, okay, Habib, you come up with a socialist system that works. Come up with a right-wing system that works. Like, show me something. It's not so easy. It's very easy to talk. In fact, my job and Sham's job is actually very easy because we just educate, just like help you understand the idea. But like when you are actually saying, I am going to let this person come into my country or I'm not. The taxes are gonna increase by 0.1% or not. We're gonna shift, it's actually quite difficult, right? It's not so easy to get from that high level all the way down to the specifics. It takes a lot of work. And the least you can do is be aware of where are your blind spots. That's all. That's the very least you can do. Like, where are my blind spots in terms of hadith, in terms of Arabic language, in terms of conflict of legal principles, in terms of this, in terms of that, precedent, right? At least that's the least you can do, right? So sometimes or often in fiqh, we will study pointless things just to play the game of what about this? What about this? What about this? Okay. خير. So he says فإن تحير أراقهما وتيمم بلا إعادة. He says you have these two containers, right? So you have these two containers, okay? And I don't know which one to use for wudu. I don't know which one to drink from, right? I want to drink from one of them, but one of them is filthy. I want to drink from one. I use one of them for wudu, but one of them is filthy, and I know that, and I can't work it out. There's no sign at all. Okay, so it says فإن تحير أراقهما. You have to pour them both away. وتيمم بلا إعادة. And you're going to make tayammum, and you're not going to repeat that prayer. Okay, why? So why do I have to pour them away? So well, if you had a container of pure and purifying water, how can you make tayammum? Like, so you can't make tayammum if you have water. And if you have water, you have to work out which of them you can use. So it's neither nor. So now you're gonna have to say, well, if I have to be in a situation where I don't have any water, so you have to pour them both away. So now I don't have water. That's okay, right? Now I can say I have no water, so I can make tayammum, right? And he says, well, a'ma yajtahid, and a blind person will also do ijtihad. So the blind person can also think about smell, about proximity, about this or that, even if you can't see, right? So what is that principle based on? The idea that if you can do some level of ijtihad, you still have to do ijtihad, right? So just because you can't do everything, you don't do nothing, right? So it says, فَإِن تَحَيَّرَ قَلَّدَ بَصِيرًا. He's stuck, then he's going to follow somebody who can see, right? So you find you have a blind spot in your own ijtihad, as a parent, as a doctor, as a politician, as a mufti, as a qadi, right? You're like, okay, I understand the hadith side of this stuff. I don't understand the fiqh side of this stuff. Or I understand the fiqh side of this stuff. I don't understand the hadith side of this stuff, right? So you might have a mujtahid imam, but he does taqleed in this domain. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to download an app for that because I can't, that's not me, right? It's like Imam Ghazali, right? Imam Ghazali's super giant fiqh. However, he said about himself, he says, بِضَاعَتِي fil hadith مُزْجَاهِ. He says, I don't know anything about hadith. That's not my forte at all. So he's there critiquing the whole madhab and organizing the whole madhab, yet he doesn't really know much about hadith. Because he says, what am I going to do? He says, when it comes to hadith, I just follow the muhaddithin. That's not my job. I just follow. That's a huge blind spot for me. I don't know how to work that out. So, whatever, I'll just defer, right? So taqleed is called to defer, right? So he realizes in terms of where the buckets are and how they smell, it's all equal, but actually there's probably a thing about color. So he's like, hey, so and so, can you look at them? Because I have to do taqleed now. I have to defer to you. So when you say taqleed in fiqh, it means to defer to someone else's expertise because you have a blind spot that you realize, right? As opposed to you don't have a blind spot, right? So it is wrong to do taqleed, to defer to someone's expertise when you yourself can do this, right? Who should you get married to? Oh, I'm just gonna ask my teacher who I should get married to. So, well, you're the guy getting married. You work out what should I do with my kids? Should I raise them in the West? Should I raise them in the desert? Should I raise them here? I don't know. Well, you work it out. They're your kids. You work out, well, I don't know. Like no one has a magic wand, right? So it is right to defer to other people in expertise that you don't have. But it is wrong to defer to people that you're responsible for. You're responsible for your own situation, whatever it is. And you actually have the ability to work it out. So you go and work it out, right? What's the phrase? You made the bed, go and sleep in it, right? So many people, they do taqleed, right? Not talking about in deen, but they do taqleed in life when they shouldn't be doing taqleed in life. It's your responsibility, Habibi. You work it out. Nobody has a magic wand, and nobody's going to take the fall. That's the phrase, right? It's it's your thing, right? You got to work this out now, right? For kids, hey, you're the man now. You're a teenager. You're an adult. You work it out. I don't know. You want to get married? Get married. And have kids? Have kids. It's up to you. You want to work first? You want to study first? It's up to you. You're the boss now, right? You can't do taqleed when you were able to do ijtihad. That's a concept in usul al-fiqh, right? Imam Shafi cannot just blindly follow Imam Abu Hanifa when he himself is capable of independently coming to his own conclusion. Similarly, you can't blindly follow somebody else when you yourself have an opinion, right? Okay. فإن تحير قلد بصيرا ولو اشتبه طهور بماء ورد توضأ بكل واحد مرة أو ببول أراقهما وتيمم. So he says, here's another scenario. I have a bucket of water and a bucket of water. Okay? One bucket of water was they're both pure. So in terms of drinking, not a problem. I'm not asking which one I can drink from because they're both pure. The issue is which one can I make wudu from? Okay? So uh, one is pure and purifying. The other one is not water anyway. Okay? but it doesn't have any of the characteristics. So let's think about two scenarios here. Water and water. Water A and water B. Water A, uh, water A is pure and purifying. Water B is merely pure. So in this scenario is like the previous scenario. They were both originally something, and now they've gone to another. One of them's gone to another stage of now being merely pure but not purifying. So now I'm going to do ijtihad between them. I'm going to try and guess which one based on the signs, based on what happened, right? One of them was used for wudu, one of them wasn't. I can't tell. I can try and work it out. That's in that scenario, you're going to try and work it out. Okay, but what if one of them? So now I'm working out A and B, where A is water and B is not actually water. It just looks like water, right? They call it ma ward. It's ruhafsa, right? The rose water. But it doesn't have any smell because the smell's gone away. It doesn't have any taste because the taste has gone away. So it's not actually water though. It just looks and tastes and smells like water, right? So he says here, in this scenario, what should I do? So he says, وَلَوْ اشْتَبَهَ طَهُورٌ بِمَاءِ وَرْدٍ تَوَضَّأْ بِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ. Now you can just use both, right? Because before one was najis, you can't put it on your face. So now you can definitely have wudu by using both of them, right? So you made wudu with both of them. So therefore, what you did is you've definitely made wudu. I just don't know when you made wudu. Like, which one did you start with? It doesn't matter, but you definitely made wudu. So it's a different scenario, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we had scenario water with next to use water. You're going to do ijtihad, right? Or I guess you could use both, right, as well. Um, and then here, water and non-water. But you cannot do ijtihad between the two of them. Why? Because one of them was not water to begin with. So you can make wudu with both of them, but that's what you can do. So now water with urine. Okay? Water and urine. This urine that doesn't have any smell anymore, doesn't have any taste anymore, doesn't have any color. So here's a container of filth, and here's a container that's pure. So can I make wudu with filth? No, I cannot. Can I put it on my face? No, I cannot. So what do? You pour them both away and you make tayammum. Because now I don't have water, so now I'm excused. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I guess at the end of that discussion, you can understand why the translator said, you know what, forget it. I'm going to skip this, right? Not even put it in English. So some of you, I know there's like 16 people, 17, 16 people in this class. Some of you may be getting the picture now and say, oh, this class is a bit more advanced than I thought. And it is, right? Because the syllabus is Risalat al-Jami'ah that we have tomorrow morning, I think, or whatever, tomorrow afternoon. And then Safinat al-Najah, Ship of Salvation, which we have as well tomorrow, I think, or the next day, right? And then Mukhtasar al-Saghir, right, like Badr did, right? Then Muqaddimah Hadramiyah, like Badr did. And then Matan Shuja', like Badr did. And then Yaqut al-Nafis you could add. And then Zubad, which you could add. And then this. So you can see it's like level 8 or something like that, depending on how you organize it, right? Depending, different curriculum I put it, but it's not a simple book. But it's in English and it's famous, right? Okay, so now we go on to another discussion. So now we've finished water. Now we're going on to how do you use water, right? So for us, how we interact with water normally is through a faucet, through a tap, right? That's how we usually interact with water. But that's not the normal world, is it? The normal world did not have flowing water, right? Did Fir'aun, who was treated as God on earth, did he have flowing water? Did he have a tap to use? Probably not, right? With different, and you couldn't change the way it sprayed and things like that, right? So most of us are actually wealthier than like the wealthiest people ever walked on earth, you know. Fir'aun, again, who was God on earth, he has a headache. What's he going to do about it? You're going to go and get Tylenol, go and get some paracetamol. He couldn't do that, right? So We have to be very, very cognizant of that fact. Okay, so anyway, so normal people in the past interact with water through containers. You have a bucket of water, you have a water skin, you have a metal container, you have this, and you have that. So it says purification and use in general is permissible with water from any container whatsoever. It's in leather bag, plastic container, it's in a pipe, it's in metal, it's in this, it's that. It doesn't matter, right? It's in a clay pot. It doesn't matter how you store water, right? The exception is gold and silver. So gold and silver, as we discussed in the previous classes, gold and silver is money. It's money itself, right? So imagine if you see me, for example, buttering. Imagine if you saw me buttering my bread with like a folded $100 bill. That'd be a bit weird, right? Imagine if you saw me lighting my fire, right? I have a fire and I light it with a $100 bill. Isn't that that's a bit kind of pompous and wasteful, right? Like that's a $100 bill, Habibi. Right? Imagine if there was a famine in some country, right? And I do a video, right, of like me um doing paper airplanes into a fire of $100 bills, right? And I said, hope you're coping well, guys, right? That's like extremely cruel, right? Like $100, what you can feed with $100, I'm just throwing into a fire, right? So this is the idea here. The idea is gold and silver is currency. You can't use gold and silver as a tool. It's not a tool. Gold and silver is not a tool. Gold and silver is for jewelry, and gold and silver is for buying and selling. So you want to have a lot of gold and silver because you sold a lot of things, that's fine. You want to have a lot of gold and silver because you have, mashallah, as a woman, you have lots of jewelry, that's fine. But you cannot use gold and silver as a tool because that's kind of like crippling, okay, to the poor. They see that they can't get any of this and you're using it as a tool. You're not even using it for what it's supposed to be used for. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So here, there's a debate in the school. Is it about being wasteful or is it about breaking the hearts of the poor? Okay, so wasteful, I'm going to do the same thing with a platinum, right? Is platinum more expensive than gold?
I believe so, yes.
Believe so, right? So I'm going to have, so you say, oh, it's haram to have a golden spoon or a golden cup or use a golden bowl to make wudu, right? So I'm going to do a platinum one instead. So what do you think about that? Is that going to be halal?
I think it would be allowed.
So if we said that the reason for it being haram to use gold and silver was waste, right? Then is that wasteful?
Yes.
Yeah, it is wasteful.
I spent even more. But if we said the reason is because the poor see what you're doing and they're like, oh my God, like I can't get any of this stuff. He's using it as a tool. He's using it as something extra.
Possibly because platinum can easily be made to look like steel, whereas gold and silver are very easily identifiable.
Exactly, right? So that is the school. That is the relied upon position in the Shafi school, is that like if you could have like a diamond, I don't know what you can make out of a diamond. Could you make a diamond glass? I don't know. But like, you're drinking out of a diamond cup, diamond glass. You are using what's it called? Platinum, like, a knife to spread your butter or to eat your food or something like that. It's fine. It's fine, meaning because they wouldn't know what it is by default. So it's not breaking their heart. But it is offensive, right? So there's these two positions. The reliable position is that it's not haram and it's merely offensive to do that and wasteful, etc., and un-Islamic, but it's not haram. Go ahead, Badr.
Um, I I think I asked this before, but I don't remember what you said. So the position of the school is that you can't use like gold and silver as tools, But we have like silver and electronics and circuit boards and things like that for stuff like cars and phones and whatever. But if what would there be room within the school for those things to just be permissible within the Shafi'i madhab?
So if you can imagine a scenario of absolute necessity, like there is no way that we can run this power plant without this, and it's a big piece of gold or a big piece of silver, right? And there's no way that this country will survive without this power plant, then that would be different, right? But now when you come to the individual use, most of it is like plating, right? Like it's very fine plating, like it's very, very small amounts. Like if you got it from like a, we don't have, do we still have, do people still use SIM cards? I don't know if, do we still use SIM cards or do they still
I
exist?
I I have SIM cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we do.
but how much gold can you get from a SIM card?
I don't think it's much. It's negligible.
It's negligible, right? So that's what's going to come in a second. He says, what if you had, when you say gold container, what does that mean? Does that mean a container covered in gold? Or does it mean a container made out of gold? Right? So if it's made out of gold, that's one thing. But if it's covered with gold, and that gold is going to mention it here. So it says, except or those to which gold or silver has been applied, that any of it could be collected from a vessel by heating with fire. Right? So you take your SIM card to a goldsmith, and he's like, "Oh, mashallah, you got so much gold here." He's like, "No, he takes his torch. He can't do anything with it, right? You know, there's
Yeah.
you can't do anything with it, right? Like, don't we eat gold as well sometimes? Can't you put like gold in like food and things? Like it's a super, super thin layer that you could bite into it and like digest it. And there's like, you know, my dad used to do some gold leafing and it was like 1 or 2 atoms thick. Like it's like it's very, very difficult to work with. So it's like on this book, like you put it on a book and it'd be like, you know, you take the book into a country and they're like, oh, declare it at customs. Like, there's nothing there. Like, you see it, but it's basically nothing there. Like, think of something like that. Like, gold leaf is something like 1 or 2 atoms thick or something. It's very, very thin. So, so there is, could you take it to a goldsmith and get the gold? Yes. Okay, that's considered. So it was a steel, a steel container covered in gold, such that you could actually take that gold off. That's considered a gold container, right? Not if it's so thin that you couldn't do that. Okay. Um, I know, but I mean, it goes through you. That's what I mean, right? Those to which it go, right. So such containers or utensils, tools, are unlawful for men or women. So a woman can use gold jewelry, right? But neither a man nor woman can use gold or silver containers, right? Or pens, or I don't know, or tools. I don't know what they can use, right? In purification, eating, drinking, or otherwise. It is unlawful to acquire such container or utensil, even if one does not use it. So this is another issue, right? So I'm trying to follow Quran and Sunnah. Say, okay, sure. So you ask this person, if you read the Quran, say, yeah. Have you read the verse, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, don't follow the steps of the devil? So yeah. You read the verse of the Quran, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا, don't get close to zina? So yeah. Have you seen any scenarios in the Quran and Sunnah where Allah forbids something because of what it may lead to? Say, yeah. Okay, cool. So what's that principle called? I don't know, but I know it's a principle. That's called Sadd al-Dhara'i, blocking the means. Say, okay, sure, okay. And you say, how are you going to use that now? You've read the Quran and Sunnah, now you're a mufti giving fatwa from Quran and Sunnah. How are you going to use that? Say, well, I guess, whenever something will lead to the haram, I'll forbid it. Say, okay. Can you give me some examples? Blank slate. Whereas the person who's mutamadhib, he has 50,000 scenarios in his head. Someone who follows a madhab, they were trained, they have 50,000 scenarios where they did or did not take into consideration where something will lead. So we say, for example, in the Shafi school, anything that has no halal use cannot be bought or acquired. You can't buy it, you can't receive it as a gift. So I give you some golden spoons, you can't accept them, right? Okay, why? Because you may well use them, right? So here we look at the fact that the use, so in general, something that normally results in a haram is haram, but there are other exceptions as well. Sometimes it's less than normal. Sometimes it may well, right? So here whenever we say you can't buy things, right, it's forbidden to buy or acquire something that has no halal use, right? You cannot do that. Okay, go ahead, Badr.
So two questions here. So what if for the first scenario where you were talking about the um utensils for women, what if it's something that's jewelry and has a function like a gold Rolex?
Yeah, so that's a bit tricky. So it's tricky. So if a watch is jewelry, then it would be haram for a man to have like a nice looking watch, but it would
Mm-hmm.
be halal for a woman to have a gold watch.
Yeah.
If it's a tool, a man can have a cool any kind of watch he wants because it's a tool, but a woman couldn't have a gold watch.
Yeah, okay, it's tricky because it's both.
Yeah, so the questions I don't know. I don't know where we go. So,
Mm.
but the issue is now is that that's defined by orf. So it could actually be different in different places. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
also, it's a
yeah.
little bit different now, right? What happened when the iPhone came out or mobile phones? What happened to the sales of watches,
I think they went down, didn't they?
right? Because it's like, you know, the key thing with a watch is like, watch tells me the time. Habibi, the phone tells you the time and 50,000 other things, right? So you're like, where's my phone? What time is it? What time is it? Where's my phone, right? So like, so it could well be that, for example, 20 years ago in New York, a watch is X and now this watch is Y. Like, why do you have a watch? So, what's a tool? Okay, but is it normally a tool or is it something else? You know? So I don't know the answer. But I was just saying it could be different in different place, time, and in the world. Is a watch a tool or is a watch a um, piece of jewelry? You know, and even where it's sold, right? Like you can buy a watch in a jeweler store, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not like,
Okay.
but it's like
Mm-hmm.
a G-Shock, like is that jewelry? Like, you know, here's like a
No.
golden, you know. So now she has a golden G-Shock, you know, thing that she can take down when she scuba dives. She can go down to like whatever, scuba dive gold. Like that's a tool, Habibti, right? You know, it's like, you know, G-Shock is not really, but I don't know. It's kind
Yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
Wallahu
Okay. The second question was, if you, let's say, like you found like a bunch of golden spoons or something, you
hmm
know, here it says it's haram to acquire it, but what if you just took it and smelted the gold into bullion
So
coins or
that's
rounds?
fine, but you can't sell it. So what you can't do, right? What you can't do is just sell it as it is because
Uh-huh.
selling leads to use. So you sell it to me. So
Yeah.
here's the gold spoons. You just sell them as they are. Can't do that. So what you can do is you smelt them, or you pay me to do that, or you know, something like that. But you can't just sell it as it is. Like, oh, khalas. So in the Shafi'i school, we have this very deeply moral but quite inconvenient thing is whatever is haram for us is haram for them. You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes worse, they have an issue in fiqh is can you play chess with a Hanafi? So I'm playing chess, it's makruh for me and it's haram for him. So am I allowed to do that? Like I'm helping him do something haram for him, right? So what you know, so here the scenario is like I have these golden spoons, you're just selling them on eBay, right? I mean that's problematic in itself, but let's say you start selling them in your store, right? Selling them to your neighbor. Like what's your neighbor gonna do with it? He's gonna use it. Okay, that's haram, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I understand. Thank you.
Right, I think. Okay. Okay. And Arias, you had a question?
Yes. I wanted to ask, it is unlawful to acquire such things, but does it mean that one can't have ownership over it? Like if you have one, like let's say I have gold, made in gold utensil with it, do I have still ownership or because, or let's say, yeah, do I have still the ownership of the utensil or it, do I have to uh,
You mean relinquish? You have to let go of it.
what?
Yeah, you
Uh,
basically you have to destroy them. It's like an idol. Now,
mm,
my friend did this. He became Muslim, and he's like, "This is going to be this is going to be the most awesome, what's it called? Heavy metal concert ever." What did he do? He like trashed his like guitars in his back garden. You know, so that kind of scene of someone smashing the guitar apart. Like, it's like you have a guitar. Like, what's its use? It doesn't have a halal use, right? So
mm,
you can't keep it. You can't keep it, and you can't sell it, right? So. Allahu Alam. There are other positions, right? There are other positions, but that's the relied upon position is like this has no halal. Or you're either in my Jahiliyyah, I went to India, bought some cool Buddhas, and I have this like all this like freaky idol from like China, and it's just kind of cool. I call him Ed, and it's like yeah, that's haram though, right? Like you can't have an idol in your house, right? At the end of the day, even if it's just cool, like it was just a joke. You just had it there as a joke, and it was kind of thing like hi Ed, whenever you walked in your house, like, no, Habib, you have to break that. Like breaking idols is obligatory, right?
mm,
Right. So, inshallah, we're gonna make a case, Sham, that like the the Muslims like the heaviest rockers and the heaviest rebels. What's it called? What's it called? The heaviest what's the word? Uh, Anarchists ever, right? Because they break idols and these kind of things. So you know, so
I mean,
that's
anything, yeah, anything is possible. The craziest place, I mean, Allah knows was my heart. I had to pray. After I took Shahada, I prayed at a Motley Crue concert.
there we go. Motley
Prayed Maghrib in the corner of a stadium.
Allahu Akbar. Yeah. Yeah, my
My
friend,
aura was covered. I had wudu. I just found the corner, did my
yeah,
thing.
alhamdulillah. No, my friend who was a DJ, he said that. He said like he remembers like he was he was doing his thing and then in the middle he had to pray and he was like he said that was like the biggest prayer ever, right? And he's like he prayed on a bench. He said he always remember just praying this bench and whatever. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. So anything's possible. But the point is we have to break idols. So that's actually an insult, by the way. If anybody's into Tintin, right? One of Captain Haddock's insults is iconoclast, like you're an idol breaker, right? But the Prophet ﷺ broke idols. You know what I'm saying? Like we break idols. That's actually quite important. Like Jesus will come and break the cross, right? That's the thing that he will do, right? Like you can't just keep it. It's like it actually has to be broken, right? It's quite important. Right? If you can imagine that, like imagine seeing that happen in front of you, right? The Prophet ﷺ comes into Mecca, says, "You guys are all forgiven. I know you fought us and you tried to kill us and everything. I've forgiven you, but I will break the idols." And it's like, oh, because they are bad and they do lead to bad, right? So it is actually like that's actually harmful, right? Breaking the idols. It's quite an important thing. I know. No, I lived in we moved into a Catholic's house. When we were seeing the house, like, oh my God, there was like a ridiculous amount, right? Um, and it's like, so what did I do is like they moved everything out and I just sat there before we even moved in, I just sat there doing Baqarah for like a long time. Okay, we have to go into another class, inshallah. So basically it's unlawful to acquire such things, right? So this is important, right? Curiosity killed the cat. People. So here's just a tangent, right? So like it's haram to own a golden cross, or it's haram to own a golden spoon because hey, it might possibly lead to haram. So how halal is the internet? You know what I'm saying? So like people don't talk about that. They don't come and say the internet's haram. But it's like, I mean, in terms of like how much haram can happen online, like in seconds, right? It's like a really, really dangerous machine, right? A super, super dangerous machine, right? And because it's happened so fast, and because we're so dependent on it, and because of this, because of that, and all these different things, we're like, oh, khalas, like there's no question, no comment, right? But it's actually really, really, really dangerous. So I'm not giving a fatwa. I'm not saying A or B. I work on the internet. What do we do? Right? But to think like, oh yeah, it's like that's just fine. Everything's fine about it, right? It's like not a problem, right? Um, that's not a very that doesn't really make too much sense, right? Too much moral sense. Wallahu a'lam. So it's unlawful to answer even a small eyeliner stick of silver. So why would you use an eyeliner stick of silver? Why would you do that? What is unique about gold and silver? They are
Doesn't rust.
doesn't rust. They are inert, right? Don't react, right? So usually some people are allergic to gold and silver, right? Or but usually, right, gold and silver, you're not going to have any allergy, right? You're putting this thing in your eye. Imagine you putting like iron in your eye, right? That's not a very clever thing to do, right? Getting wet and all these kind of things. But as opposed to gold and silver, you can put this kuhul into your eye, and there's a use there, right? So it said, no, so even if there is a use, it is not a unique use, right? So it's not so I have a reason for using silver, I have a reason for using gold. Does that make it halal? No, because it's not unique, because you could use something else. You could use a stick, you could use plastic, right? You can all use different things, right? We'll stop here, inshallah. Um, right. Yeah. So we'll stop here, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Jazakum khair.
جزاك الله أستاذ.